Hi, everyone, and welcome to this presentation on the low-code capabilities of digital product design platforms. My name is Jason Barris. I'm a Senior Vice President at Infragistics. I've been with the company for going on 20 years. I've written a bunch of books on various topics and have been involved in the software industry for going on 3 decades. If you need any other information after this talk, please follow me on Twitter or shoot me an email at jasonb@infragistics.com. So today we're going to talk about today's challenges in software development. We're going to look at the promise of low-code and no-code tools. Obviously, everyone is here at this event, so you're very interested in low-code. There's a new concept we'll talk about today around something called digital product design platforms. This was introduced by Gartner in the last couple of years, and it's taking on a little bit of steam, and it's something that you should know about to understand your options when you're looking at low-code solutions in the market or no-code solutions. The overall impact of low-code on the future of software development. Again, you're going to hear a lot of this information today in the conference, and then we'll take a look at some of the products in the market today. So today's software development challenges, they're everywhere. Software development challenges have not changed. There's always something that we need to worry about. The big thing around today's issues are user experience. User experience has become a key differentiator in products that make it or break it in the market. So if you have a great user experience, you can go viral, other people talk about your product, then you're going to get attention and you're going to see those hockey stick-like growth numbers that others aren't seeing. But the problem is, to get a great user experience is very difficult today. So you have multiple teams, you have UX centers of excellence, you have developers that think they know UX, and none of these things actually really work well together to deliver that beautiful software experience that your end users expect. So take a look at some of these quotes here. 50% of a dev's time is spent trying to fix issues that could have been avoided. This is because they could have been avoided if there was a UX process in place and a way to actually translate what customer feedback was into a design and then out to software. Problems in development are 10x more expensive to fix than in design. So think about it. If it's $1 to fix during the design phase, $10 to fix during the development phase, but $100 to fix while after the product's been released, that's a huge cost to software. And it's not just $100. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. So every bug, UX bug or product bug that gets out in the wild is a huge burden, to the point where some software is just being bug fixed. There's no innovation, no new features, because it has so many issues in it. UX focus, user experience focus on having a deep understanding of what users want, what they need, and also their abilities and their limitations. So if you're not building that into your software, then you're going to ultimately have issues. And then the last two here, 70% of enterprise CEOs now see UX as a competitive differentiator. That number goes higher every day, 70, 70.5, 71. Everyone knows that a great UX will help you sell more product, and it'll help you gain traction in the market. And then, according to Forrester Research, the revenue impact of a 10-point improvement in a company's customer experience can translate into more than $1 billion in revenue. So the numbers are huge for what's at stake in delivering these great experiences to the market today. So then we hear a lot about low code and no code. Can it really save us from the problems that we see in software development today? So here's a couple definitions and opinions. The reason I say opinions is because based on the vendor that you're talking to, you're going to hear a different definition. So even articles, there's 1,000 articles written every month on low code, no code. Even the definitions are different. Some no-code tools are really low-code tools. Some low-code tools want to be no-code, or they're too much code, or they really don't provide what you want. Or honestly, a lot of the no-code tools today are just RPA tools, so they're just automation tools. So a low-code tool really, based on our experience at Infragistics and what we're seeing in the market, is digital product teams create apps using visual tools that require little to no upfront coding. So we think about a digital product team that does design, and then they need to build out these screen experiences like the flows and the screens, and then those get user tested, and then those get handed off to developers, and then developers finish it with code. So that's this low code stuff. So if you can find a low code tool that has a user experience piece, like might integrate in with your Sketch, your InVision, your balsamic tools. Figma is another one. Adobe XD. If you can have your design team work in those tools all day long and then hand it off to a developer where they don't have to rewrite any of that code, that's a great low code tool because it's starting you off by saving 60-70% of that time that you would normally do creating layout, CSS, HTML, which is very cumbersome, it's error prone, and quite frankly, something that developers are just not good at. No code is end-to-end app creation. I think of no code really as something like Power Apps from Microsoft. There's other ones in the market as well, but Power Apps literally is a drag and drop tool. You have property editors and it's generating the entire end-to-end app. You don't need to write any code for that thing to work at the end of the day. Now, the interesting thing is Power Apps considers themselves a low-code tool, even though you have to write zero code to do most of the work in Power Apps. It has data connectors, the ability to do process flow and automation, and then you can deploy it right to a tablet or a phone. That's a really good no-code experience. So now let's talk about these digital product design platforms, which I think are really important to the future of your consideration when you're thinking about low code. So the digital product design platform has a bunch of different pieces to it. And what I want to stress here is that just because it's called a platform doesn't necessarily mean that all of these pieces are in a single application. The important thing is when you're looking at tools in the market is that they integrate well together. So if I'm using a vector image tool and I'm using a dev tool, is there a handoff or a connection between those two tools that'll help me deliver software better with a better user experience, following a good UX process, and then saving that cost savings on the developer side. But you can see here there's little segments. Screen design, of course, is where most of our time is spent. It's where most of the bugs occur. And it's where developers have the hardest time, really, with modern web development. User flows, so how do screens navigate to and fro? What are the interactions? Interactive prototyping, user testing, and often forgot about piece of the UX process where you actually test with users how they can complete tasks in the application. So you might have a testing tool that allows you to automate flows, and then the user has to do the same thing, and you can see if it takes them 1 minute or 3 minutes or 10 seconds. And what you want to do is get users to the completion of tasks as fast as possible, because if not, then there's a UX problem. Collaboration and co-editing. So can my teams work on this product together? Can they work on screen design together? App building. Is there a WYSIWYG part of this that takes my vector screen design and puts it into an app building tool that lets my development team then take it forth and write the rest of the code? And then code generation. Can I get real production ready code? A lot of the tools on the market today have one or a few of these pieces, but they don't have all of them. So then you have to look for ones that kind of have good connectivity or have the pieces that matter the most to you. But the important thing here is the foundational piece here, where you see the design system on the bottom. What ties everything together in a digital product design platform is a design system. So if you don't have a design system for your organization, or you're thinking about building a design system, it's going to end up being critical to this overall time and cost savings when you're delivering digital product today. So the design system has a bunch of different pieces. Many of you have probably heard of a design system. If you're coming from like rich client development, maybe not. One of the biggest problems, though, is that a lot of the no-code, low-code tools today don't even consider design systems. And then other ones are 100% based on design systems. So there's this big mismatch in the market over what's really needed to make this work and then what the tools actually support. So colors, typography, images, layout, iconography, animation, the copy of your actual pages, and then illustrations. This all goes into a design system. Even things like accessibility, Section 508, ARIA, A11Y, all of that would be defined in your design system. So the design system ends up being this single source of truth of which we build applications in our organization. An organization can have multiple design systems if they have multiple product families. But the idea is that if you have a product family, like for example, Microsoft Office, everything needs to look well and work well together. They've done a huge amount of work to make Fluent a design system that works across all of their products. So when a Microsoft developer needs to create a screen or a dialogue in Microsoft Word, he doesn't even have to think. He goes to the design system, he knows how layout should work, what font should be used, how the controls should look, and that's what ends up being built into the product. So the design system ends up being critical to the digital product design platform and to delivering success across each one of these steps in digital product delivery. So let's take a look at digital product design platforms. Are they a low-code platform solution to silo challenges? I think that you might argue that each area of the UX process does absolutely have challenges. And depending on who you are on the product team, are you a product manager, product owner? Are you a developer, architect? Are you a UX visual designer? Are you a UX architect or a researcher? Each persona has different challenges and different problems that are really siloed in this big story of digital product delivery. So the big thing about digital product design platforms is they do save time and money. So when we think about increasing team productivity, shortening time to market, producing higher quality, more usable products, these products absolutely save time. So research tells us that 50 to 90% reduction, there's a 50 to 90% reduction of development time with low-code tools that are using things like a design system to deliver outcomes for digital product. This doesn't necessarily mean that, hey, I'm going to use Power Apps or Google or an Amazon tool to automate some of my screen creation. But the important thing is that if you're looking at low code, how does it go from that to where you need to add your own custom code? And that's usually where things fall apart. Or your design team came up with something and the tool does not allow you to actually implement it. That's where things start to fall apart. So if you use these products and there's integration points, you can get extreme savings in time and money in low code. So looking at the future, there's no doubt that everyone on this call will be doing low code eventually. Maybe some of you already are. Maybe there's a low code, no code mix. But IDC forecasts that close to 60% of part-time devs will be using low code by 2025, with 1/3 of full-time app devs will eventually become low code developers. And the growth of this is huge. So full-time low code developers is growing at a compounded annual growth rate of 51%, in contrast to 32% of part-time coders. So your full-time devs, the ones that are in the enterprise or the small business where you have management trying to save money, deliver faster, that growth is happening at a compounded rate of 50% on low code dev. So you will be doing low code no matter what. And honestly, there's all kinds of research that shows some of the early low code tools where there's a lot of resistance on dev teams. Once they embraced them, they loved it, because a lot of the muck that kind of ties down and bogs down software development just gets eliminated. But now the big thing is, how does user experience play into this? So is there stuff that you can do with some of the digital tools out there that designers use and pull that into your software development? And then, of course, Gartner says 70% of app dev by 2025 will be low code. Now, here's the key to bringing low code into your entire software development process. A successful low code solution, as I mentioned earlier, starts with the design system. So the design system has all of the rules that dictate what should come out at the other end, like when the software is already built. So the minute a designer starts to design a new screen, a new application, anything, how does that translate to actual components in the wild that the dev team is using that will then generate code to give us actual running applications out the back end? So you need a well-planned design system. There's tons of articles, and I'll also post some resources on how you can create your own design systems. One of the things you can do is start with one of the very popular design systems out there, like Material from Google, Fluent from Microsoft. There's a bunch out there. But what most companies are doing is they're looking at those as the foundational elements of what they build their design systems on, because a lot of the work is already done. And for example, if you look at something like Material by Google also has the CDK, which is the component development kit, which is UI components. So you've got a design system, you've got UI components, and that means anything that's designed can actually be built. Tools like Indigo, which is a bunch of the screens here from Infragistics, we have plugins for Sketch, which have all the UI components. We have real UI components and Angular, React, Blazor, etc. And then we have tools that translate whatever the designer designs into an app builder, which then a dev team can use, which then generates all of this production ready code. So the key is an excellent, well-defined, managed design system for your product family. So let's take a look at some of the vendors. There's a bunch of representative vendors in this space. And what we want to highlight really is around the digital side of this process, which is the UX side. So thinking about some of these vector-based tools over the years that really kick off the process. So two of the big ones in the market today are InVision and Adobe XD. InVision's probably been around for 6 or 7 years, maybe a little bit longer. They've really turned out to be a massive platform. And the funny thing about InVision is they really kind of scared Adobe a little bit because they had such a huge market share because Adobe didn't have a solution. But the thing about both of these tools is they both have a large user base. They're both great platforms for doing UI prototyping, interaction design, image-based prototyping. They both do really strong design system management. So that means like you're creating a design system, how do you share it with others? How do you share it with tools? How do you communicate out to developers what they can use? Well, these tools have that built in. And then they have plugins for Sketch. InVision has plugins for XD and other ways to sync between tools. So remember I said the connection between these tools is what ends up being really important. So how can I go from InVision into something like Zeppelin, which is another tool that allows you to get digital assets for your software development process? Well, there's plugins for that. Some of the cons, they skip on the user testing, so there's really no good user testing story here. You need another third-party tool for that. There's no code generation extensions. Again, you could maybe build your own or use their extensibility model to try that yourself. And anything that you do design isn't really going to produce usable code at the end. Figma. This is a very interesting tool. It's a real fast riser the last couple years in vector-based tools. In fact, Figma used to be, kind of early adopter. Sketch became super popular. InVision was really popular. Now Figma is sort of more popular than all of them. The reason is Figma took a different approach to digital product design. They looked at it from day one as there needs to be extensibility points, which gives development teams code output. So with Figma, you can actually write plugins or connect to UI components that map to design systems and generate code. So it's not like a code generator. It's more like you're just using the same components from GitHub per se inside of Figma. So whatever gets designed there will actually produce something that is usable. So that's a very interesting tool. They have a new store which allows you to download stuff and kind of integrate in with the way that you work, which is pretty neat. Cons, no user testing, no design to code extensions that they provide. It's all third party. And the designs do not produce usable code unless you write your own extension. Sketch, large user base. It's vector. Sketch is everywhere. They took off because they were $99 forever. Now they have a subscription. Now they've got a cloud piece. They took funding. So it's kind of like they're getting bigger and bigger. So they have to change their business model. But this is a great tool. But again, it's great for image-based prototyping. It's great for collaboration with stakeholders, and it's great for vector design. What it's not great for is user testing, design to code. And by the way, it only runs on a Mac, so you require a Mac. And then finally, Indigo Design. This has the most balance. It does image-based prototyping. It has markup tools. It has an app builder. It has Visual Studio Code plugins. The more heavily weighted on developer features versus designer features. So instead of having this be a design tool, it integrates well with Sketch, with Figma, with Adobe XD, and then it gives developers more capabilities. So I would say on the left side of this graph, InVision is really designer focused. Figma is designer focused with developer aspirations. Sketch designer focused. Indigo Design developer focused with some UX tools mixed in there. So this is a lay of the land in terms of these products and how they would integrate in. Now, what I want to highlight, however, is if I go to something like Power Apps. So let me run over here to Power Apps. And I have a couple things that I want to show really quick. Power Apps, and this is where we talk about these low-code solutions that don't take UX in mind, is it's still using this developer-like property editor for theming and styling and branding. There's no way to say, let's import in a design system that we created in Figma and then apply it to our Power App application. And that's the big problem with things like Power Apps and other no-code, low-code tools, where you still need to do some manual work. So for example, if I'm looking at something in Figma, which this is a design here in Figma, and I'm selecting assets inside of Figma, I'm getting all of the HTML, CSS, colors, images, etc. all right here. So now I can take this and translate it into the CSS and code in Power Apps, but there's still a disconnect. What really needs to happen is this tool, or Microsoft, needs to be able to pull in stuff from these vector-based tools like Sketch, InVision, Adobe XD, Indigo Design, etc. I mentioned Sketch's cloud tool. It's very similar. You can see here, it looks a lot like Figma. As I'm highlighting elements, it's giving me information about them. Now, if I open Sketch up, this is what Sketch, the actual tool, looks like. And what this is a customized design system based on material to create these screens. And Sketch has this capability for you to add overrides. So a design team can really customize how they use UI components in Sketch with overrides to make it, match their brand experience, or to make sure that other developers are building the same types of applications with the same patterns, etc. So you can see here, if I go over to symbols, it's Indigo Design. This is a design system. It's a variant of material, but it includes all of the components and all of the UI patterns that you would need to make up all of these screens. So it's just a simple drag and drop to make all of this come together. The nice thing specifically about Indigo Design is that if you do anything in Indigo Design, it will allow you to pull that into an app builder. So you can go directly from Sketch into an app builder and you have the same experience. And then what this is doing is it's actually generating real Angular code, real Blazor code, really whatever it's supported. So right now, Angular, Blazor are supported. Blazor's in preview. It's actually shipping a little bit later. But the idea is I don't have to rewrite any of this. I'm actually getting all of the HTML, all of the CSS directly from my design tools. And that's where low code and digital design have to come together. So the pressure that we're going to see to meet some of these numbers that Gartner and Forrester talk about in IDC is more on the integration touch points between digital product, vector-based tools that do design system management, they do prototyping, with tools that actually do app building and generating code to pull all that in, and less of the Power App type experiences where it's just like going back to being a developer where I have to pull in and do property settings. Maybe I can get some CSS, but a design system is so much more than CSS. So there's a lot of work that needs to get done here, but it's important that you know what the tools are and what they can actually achieve. So my recommendations are: consider low-code capabilities of digital product design platforms to accelerate app design and development. This is a new concept to most of you, so it's worth just starting to investigate these tools. If you haven't built a design system yet, start now, because it's the foundation. And then the success hinges really on this continuum of what am I using in my vector image product from the design system, and then how does that translate into components like the Material story, like the Fluent story. Like Microsoft has components for Fluent, Material has components in the CDK for Material design system. Infragistics has the same thing for Indigo. We have components for that design system. So how do these things marry together and match up so what is designed can actually be generated into an actual application? So digital product design platforms have emerged as a core tool, and you will hear this more and more. And the reason you'll hear it more and more is because analysts are talking about it. So the more that analysts talk about it, the more executives hear it, the more management hears it, and that means you as a developer or a designer will really start to hear about these things. According to Gartner, in the era of remote work and distributed teams, of course, this is post-pandemic, even we're still in a pandemic, real-time collaboration and co-editing across over the cloud is critical. So how does this work within these products? And really these new platforms are acting as the new whiteboard for the entire digital product team. So application leaders must understand the key features of digital product design platforms and deploy a tool to cover everything from screen design to code generation. That's a quote from Gartner's Technology Insight for digital product design platforms from late last year. My message to you is start looking at these tools now. The ones that will bubble up to the top and win are the ones that have the best extensibility, that help you go from design system all the way to code output. And even though the worst thing you can do is say, well, what is the code output? Is it Angular? Is it Blazor? Is it React? Or we're a web component shop? That's obviously has nothing to do with the success of an application. It's all about developer preference. What's most important is that it fits in with your development process. So don't settle. The tools will mature. There's tools out there now that you should look at, like I mentioned, and it will really help you eliminate a lot of this tedious work that you've been doing around screen design and application flow and screen flow and prototyping. So take a look at some of these digital product design platforms. So with that, I want to thank everyone. I thought I had an end slide there. Sorry about that. Let me go all the way back up to the top. And there's my contact information again. If you have any questions or follow-ups or want to give me a shout out, shoot me an email at jasonb@infragistics.com. Thanks for listening.